We'll be starting council in 2 minutes. Council meeting for Monday, March 20th. We are good. We are live. Thank you very much. So just prior to opening the meeting, we'd like to acknowledge this meeting is being held in Unama'ki, one of the 7 districts of the Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kma'ki people. So the agenda has been circulated to council prior to the meeting. Are there any errors? I'm sorry, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda this afternoon? Councillor Patterson. FCM delegates, we will put under other in the agenda. And you want to go in camera? And we will be going in camera after council session today. Are there any other additions or deletions? It has been moved by Councillor McNeil to accept the agenda with the noted changes. Do we have a seconder for that, please? Second by Deputy Warden Daphne. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. So our first item on council this afternoon from the acting collectively presentation, we have Dr. Grace Warner, Bria Boutlier, and Brianna Wolf that are going to present to welcome to Victoria County Council from wherever you're joining us from today. And we look forward to your presentation. So I'm not sure who's going to take the lead. But we will turn it over to you, and then we've allocated about 20 minutes for your presentation, and then we'll open it to questions or comments. Does that sound reasonable to you folks?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. And can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Sometimes the other mics I can't hear as well. So if I don't hear you, just speak very loudly. So.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to turn it over to you, and you are who's speaking?
So my name is Dr. Grace Warner. I'm one of the co-leads on the project with Dr. Tanya Packer. So let me introduce, so Bria Boutlier. So you want to say, she's our research assistant, and Brianna Wolf is our coordinator for the project. And Brianna is handling the slides because she's very good at that and does all the amazing work so we're actually a very big team. So it's what I'm going to do is go over a little bit of the background of what the project's about. So a little bit about that, because we don't think that you probably remember us very well from back in the day. We're going to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing. And then at the end is the future engagement. So do you want to introduce yourselves first, or do you want to leave that for later? Does council want to say anything?
I'm just going to we're good. So we'll let you continue, and if and when they have any questions or comments, they'll identify themselves when they get to that stage, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so this first slide is just to say that we are, it's a partnership between all different places. We're very thankful for Victoria County to be part of this project, along with Cape Breton Regional Municipality and Richmond County. So those are the three counties that presented us with an expression of interest and agreed to be part of this. I call it a project, but it's more of a proof of concept to see what's going to work. We're also, as you know, we're from Dalhousie University, so that's part of it. And then BRIC NS is just another research entity that works with us. And then we're also connected to Northwood and CARP. And our funding comes from Nova Scotia Health and the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care. So we all feel a huge commitment to make sure that we use those dollars wisely. So the vision that we are going for is to help older adults stay active, healthy, and engaged in their communities. The idea is to link older adults 65 and plus from the three communities to community resources. From this information to create community profiles for our three communities, so Victoria County, Richmond County, and Cape Breton Regional Municipality, and to disseminate the findings locally and provincially to our funders, so Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care and Nova Scotia Health, and then look at whether this is a good idea to scale up. That is the task that we've been given from the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care. Is this a good idea, and should it be done across the province? So our time frame is March 2021 to March 2025. So thank you, Brianna. So I like to think of it in three different sections. So to systematically collect care needs at the individual level from individuals 65 years and older, and then provide each one of those individuals who do an assessment with an individualized care plan. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and give you an example of that. The other piece that for your benefit is to aggregate what we find out and give you back information. Our intent was to try to address the gap in community data that you would need to be able to do some planning. So the idea is to be able to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the community resources and what are the concerns with older adults identify in your community. The third part is disseminate the results locally and provincially, because the thought is that we don't want it just to be a project that sits on the shelf, but it's saying this, what worked, what didn't work, and what do we need to do to make it work if it's a good idea. So next one, Brianna. A little bit about the tool, why we chose what we're called the Acting Collectively project, because we're using this ACT tool, which was developed in the UK. We decided to use this tool because there were 30 years of development. It's been tested in a lot of different places. And there is some data to show that some savings can be done. So if people can meet their resource needs in the community, they may not need to progress on to the need for home care or long-term care or other more advanced needs. The ACT is a little bit more about the ACT tool. It's basically an interview that goes from 30 to 60 minutes, depending on how much people want to talk. There are 56 questions. They're in these 6 domains that are listed there. And from this information, what we're able to do, the tool itself creates these, what they call a wish score. So that's under well-being, independence, social engagements, and health. So there's also a database that is created. So hopefully, you know, Cassandra knows a lot more about that because she's been involved in helping us create that database. So the database has the local services and resources that we've been able to gather through 211 and then the local community coordinators. And there's also the results of the individual ACT assessments, which we're able to use for those community profiles. But at the individual level, there will be an individual action plan, which I will show you in a minute as we go farther along. So the goal of this project is to assess the usefulness and feasibility of implementing the Aged Care Technologies tool in 3 municipalities in Cape Breton. So the province has asked us, can and should the ACT tool be scaled up across the province? They're ready to do things, and they're using information we provide to decide where they're going to do things in terms of the province. So next one, Brianna. This gives you a little bit more details. Our hope is to be able to interview 480 community dwelling older adults, 65 years and older, from the 3 communities. Like I said before, plans are provided to each of the older adults who agreed to be assessed. They get an individual action plan. The other level is the data is provided to the communities, to the 3 communities, yourself, and also, you know, Cape Breton Regional Municipality and Richmond. And then we do an assessment on what worked and what didn't work. So we're going to assess how much work was it to do the assessments? Did people like the tool that we used? What was the data useful? So those are other things we're going to do our research thing on those. So progress to date, so make it a little bit less esoteric and a little bit more concrete. So this gives you an idea about the Victoria County recruitment as of March 9th. So it goes in 3 different stages. One is about people who are interested, contact, Keegan, who's our person, and say, okay, I might be interested in doing this. Then they're, to see if they are, meet the assessment and meet the eligibility criteria of being 65 years and older and living in Victoria County. And then they said, yes, I really do want to be part of this, because it's their right. Once they learn about the project, maybe they decide they don't want to do it. And then the assessment. So currently we have 11 assessments done in Victoria County. And this is an example of the action plan that is created. So each older adult who is assessed receives this action plan. So you can see by looking at that, it has the question, the prioritized problems that they prioritize. So in each one of the questions, they can identify whether they have a concern or not a concern. And then they say, well, I think I'd like to look at some resources for that concern, and I'd like to prioritize it. And so then when that happens, the database pops up these resources, and then the action plan is created. And thanks to Bria, who helps to create and send out these action plans to the individuals. So you can see from the plan, there's the green is the prioritized concerns of the older adult. And then the gray is where the community resources are there. And this is given to the older adults to say, here's a plan for you to follow up on. This is just a piece of the puzzle of what we know needs to happen. And so we also know that maybe there's not enough resources, but then those resources can be identified. So if there are concerns where there aren't resources, that's where we hope to find out also. This gives you a little bit of the data that we've been able to start to create. So this comes up as what I said before, the WISH score. So you can see the orange bar is well-being, yellow is independence, I think it's dark blue is social engagement, the light blue is health. And it comes up with these scores, and it assesses whether these scores, these are aggregate scores across all of the counties, so 60 individuals in this. So you can see where the high risk level is for health, where the blue bar is. The moderate risk, is more for the social engagement. But people are at low risk, for independence problems, and, maybe moderate risk for well-being. And the fact with the independence score is probably who we've been able to sample with any of these things. It's usually the people who are fitter, who are more likely to be able to volunteer for these things. We're hoping to get more people who may have more issues, but we continue on with the recruitment to get a broader population that would be more indicative of the people who live in Victoria County. So let's drill down a little bit more from the data, because that's very high level. So from looking into this health concerns, why does that come up as a possible risk? Well, 78% of the people that we were asked about bodily pain said they have a concern with that. 47% said they had trouble sleeping, and 30% had concerns about the condition of their skin. So these just give you an idea of why those health was at a risk level. And if we go into a little bit more, we can see that this is that was just the WISH score, but that is just one way of aggregating the data. We've been able to map the data, all the questions, the 56 questions, we'll be able to map them onto the age-friendly community domains. So we can also get other information about communication and information, housing, transportation, outdoor spaces and buildings, social participation, etc. So that's why we need to be talking to you, because we need to know what data would be helpful to you and how it should be aggregated. What would be helpful to you? So it is 56 questions that can be grouped in different ways. Is there anybody who has any questions at this point before I go on?
Are there any questions around the table in regards to the report so far? Just checking around the room. I don't see any hands up. So if you want to proceed, please do.
Thank you very much. So this is the last part. So what we're asking about engagement from Victoria County is that, we're still recruiting individuals into the, to do the ACT assessments. We have a test and try. We're looking at, where does this tool fit? Because it does need a home. And then the design on the community profiles, which we need your input to say, what should be in these community profiles? What's of value to you? So we do want you to be able to give you data that's useful. So promote and recruit, Cassandra has been wonderful and she's done a great job in trying to recruit people to be part of this. So maybe working with Cassandra to give some support in terms of distributing and displaying posters, recruitment materials. We have a lot of recruitment materials that, our team has been able to create and we're able to share with Cassandra and other individuals. Promote on the social media, introduce and discuss with public and private partners. So where are the places where people go, where they would like to know about these assessments and what might be interested in doing it? It always takes time out of people's day, so people are less likely to do it. But the more people that come on, the better data that we can give you in terms of the numbers and the diversity of people who participate. So we're asking for your help to promote and recruit the project across Victoria County. Another thing is we want to know where the home. The thought is we know this cannot be done just with volunteers. It's not sustainable to do that. So who are the people who need this data? For example, Jen Ripley, who works for Victoria County Home Support Services. So I'm going to get my acronyms right. So Jen has done the tool on her own. And so is that the right place? Who should be doing this? Who needs this information? Cassandra as senior safety. Who is that person who needs to have this information? So if you have ideas about people who might be good assessors, we're willing to train them and get some information on what they think. Do they think it's a good tool, or who should be gathering this information? Who needs this information? So that could be any health provider in CBRM, Victoria, Richmond counties. Does it, why? Because it sets the fit with the setting, because we know it can't be all done with volunteers. And they will receive training and they can complete 10 assessments and then provide us with feedback. And also there's a small stipend for doing the assessments also. So the potential benefits are to save time, personalized care, receive community profiles, and be part of the solution. So the system automatically matches the concerns of the older adult to resources. So maybe you don't have to search for those things. I know Cassandra has received additional funding, or Victoria County has received additional funding to beef up some of the database there. So that's an ongoing process to be able, but with the more we can find out what the resources are and link them to the concerns of older adults, that maybe then they'll be healthier living in their own homes. The personalized care, it's the individualized action plans that are generated. They can maybe help older adults with self-management. The community profiles, which are particular to Victoria County at that level, to learn what your community needs, and then be part of the solution to help evaluate this new technology. So this is our last slide. I tend to talk very fast. 28.5% of Victoria County's population is 65 years and older. So we're hoping that this information will be a benefit to you in Victoria County. So the community benefits from the project are that there are trained assessors now in the community. There is a beginning of a database of community resources, which can always be updated and improved. And then there's the customized community profiles that we can create, which we need your input to understand what you'd like to see and how we can put the data together. So I guess our major question here, I mean, there's several questions here. We thank you for your engagement to date, and we're asking that you continue to be engaged in the project and help us with the next steps with recruitment, being able to let us know what works for you and what would be better. So I think we can turn off the slides now. So if there are other people who need to ask questions about the project and how we can go forward, that would be great.
Thank you very much and appreciate the information this afternoon. And I'm not sure if you can see, but Cassandra is with us this afternoon, so I just want to ask her if she'd like to make a couple of comments before we go into the question section of the program.
I don't think so. I'm glad that you got a chance to present to council here today. Okay, I'll comment as needed.
I'm glad you're here to present to council today, Dal team, and I'll be here as backup if there's any clarification needed.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Cassandra.
Thank you, Cassandra. Appreciate your comments. So I'm going to open it up to questions. Councillor Patterson, any questions or comments? I saw you writing, so I assume you do.
Thank you, Warden. Nice to see you again, folks. When I came to this table 20 years ago, I worked for seniors. Then I went through a phase of another demographic group where I worked with seniors. And now I'm working for myself. Because we've all aged. I was really interested in the 30% of seniors that are concerned with the condition of their skin. I had an appointment last week with the only dermatologist on Cape Breton Island. So there is a statistic right there that shows we need more of them, obviously. And it's interesting the figure you use from England, saving billions of dollars over a long run. They, specialists spot things that our family physicians don't. Our family physicians have to do the referrals. But, when you see a specialist, you're getting specialized service, I guess they call it, which they notice things that other people don't notice. So I think that's a really powerful statistic. One powerful statistic you have that I picked out. And I know Cassandra has done a lot of work on this area, and Jen Ripley, the both of them. And I guess it's up to us now. You're giving us a bit of a task to carry out to recruit some more volunteers for the interview. So anyway, I'm looking forward to the results that come out of the project, and keep up the good work. Thanks.
I'm looking forward to it too. Thank you very much. It was nice to see you again.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor. Anybody else, any questions or comments this afternoon? Councillor Organ, please, and just perhaps let the folks know which your district is. I'm sorry, Councillor Patterson is in Ross Ferry and over to this Boulder. So my apologies. So Councillor Organ, please.
Thanks for the presentation. It was really informative. I'm Jackie Organ. I'm the counselor for District 7. That's north of Smoky, from North Ingonish down towards Smelt Brook, South Harbor area. I'd just like to know, how did you pick your participants, and what percentage were rural to more populated areas for like the social engagement and little things like that?
So the first question is how to pick the participants. And so the participants volunteer. So they when they hear about it, then they volunteer to, be part of the project. It is a part of a research project. So unfortunately, they do have to go through a consenting process to make sure that they know exactly what we're doing and that all their data is kept privately. So that's how they're picked. They're picked by being volunteers. So that's why the recruitment is so important, is getting to people who it's hard to get to. And, Cassandra can talk to the challenges of trying to recruit people. It's never, every project I've been on is difficult to recruit people for that. So now I've forgotten your second question, unfortunately, because I was so excited about talking about recruitment that I've lost my train there. So remind me of your second.
It was the percentage of rural people to more populated areas.
Yes, well, your county, right? So your county, that it's mostly rural, but I can't tell you right now, but we will be able to tell you in the future, because what we've been able to do is we are gathering their postal codes and be able to look at that. I think Cassandra would probably get a better answer for that, because she would know basically who's been able to be recruited. So what would you say, Cassandra, in terms of I would say mostly rural, but I don't know.
I would say mostly rural, probably within Victoria County, maybe 30% out of Ingonish or Bedeck, and the rest in outlying areas so far.
No, is there no more follow-up on that one? No, you're good? Okay.
I'm Counselor Longva. I was District 4, goes from the foot of Smoky to the Seal Island Bridge and to the Bell Bay, or to the museum in Bedeck and everything in between. And yeah, you were looking for people that you want to give training to, and they would have 10 clients. I don't really understand, like, is this to do with, like, what's it for? And is it volunteers you're looking for, or is it a paying job?
All good questions. So the first thing, so for example, people like Cassandra, who is an assessor, and also Jen Ripley, who is an assessor. So our thought is that we don't want this just to be we want to see where this tool would fit. So the idea is if we had other people who could try being assessors, to say that they work, as a paramedic, or they work in another agency, and say, well, this would be really good information for me to have, that they might be willing to, it is a volunteer, it's not pay, there's a small stipend for every assessment that's done. So I think it's, I don't even know what it is, maybe $20 an assessment, is that right? Yes, Brianna. So there's a small stipend. You're right. It's asking a lot, but it is saying, if this tool were to be useful, who needs this information? And so that's what we're trying to figure out. Who could use this information to the benefit of the municipality? Who could use this information to the benefit of their business or the health? Like, for example, those, like I said, I mentioned paramedics. Would paramedics be a good person to recruit and say as assessors? And then they would have that information that would inform what they do. So that's what we're trying to understand. Where does this tool fit? Where can this information be used? Because we're just trialing it. We're trialing the assessment. We're trialing, how does the database work? What resources are in it? And then we're asking everybody involved, saying, what works? But if we don't know the best place to, if it does work, but then where should it be? Who should be doing it in the future, rather than a one-off? Because we know how it is with research projects. We start doing things, we don't have enough money, and then we find out something works and it's not sustainable. So our thought is, if we can provide that information back to the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care, we can hopefully all work together to try to find something that's sustainable.
So just would a regular person that wasn't paramedic or wasn't like anybody could do this? So would they receive training online? Is that where the training would be?
Yeah, the training's online, but we do it in person online. So it is like us online training. So it's not like you look at a video and it's not interactive. But it is, so we've developed a training, I must say, to Bria and Brianna, amazing trainers. So basically it's saying, look at the tool, and we teach people how to use the tool. And then we answer questions or any issues that people have. So they
would come to our community then.
Yeah.
And then everyone would get together with their computer and learn online.
Yeah, well, you learn, the training is online, and the assessments can be done either through telephone, through video, or in person. But you have to, because it is a database, you have to enter the information, the answers to the questions into the database so that they can connect up with the resources. But it is kind of an interview. It has questions, but they are asked in the interviews, conversational style.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your
Counselor.
question.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody on this side? Deputy Warden's good. Counselor McNeil, any questions or comments? Your mic on, please.
Just a comment, probably the last couple of years, because of the pandemic, you've been behind the 8 ball, but things are starting to open up now, and people, you might be able to recruit people at different, let's say, planned events throughout the area, if you had a booth there that you couldn't do in the past 2 years. So maybe you'll get more people that way.
Yeah, that would be lovely. That'd be lovely. And we're also planning, like we had done, we're also planning a trip to come up to Cape Breton too, but we're trying to figure out, kind of the right time to do that. So if there's an event or something, I know Cassandra's been really good about contributing ideas of, if we do come up, is there an event that we could go to that would make sense for us to attend? I mean, of course, we're from Halifax, so, or I'm not from Halifax, I'm from Dartmouth, but I guess that's the same thing. We recognize the fact that it's more about people in the community, you know, being able to say, I guess we hope that you own it and that it is your data and we hope that it provides something of interest to you. And so we hope that people in the community will see. I know it's frustrating because we don't have enough resources. I mean, I think there's no question about that people don't have all they need. But I think the more we can, I think we've used the term elevate the voices of older adults. I myself, if you can tell, my hair is white. So I do feel a little passionate about the fact that we do need to do a better job of everybody coming together in terms of community resources and health, because we know health will never do everything we wish it would do. So I do hope we can recruit people so that we do get a diverse group of people who can answer the questions, and we can provide you with a little bit more information about what's going on in Victoria County.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McDonald, just before we leave, any questions or comments?
Great presentation. I'm up in Northern Cape Breton, up in District 8, which is the top of the island. I was just wondering if there's is there a percentile that you have in place so far with participants? And what is the means, or what is your goal to reach? I know 100% would be the effective number they would like to, but where are we at now with this, just roughly?
So we're just at the beginning. Recruitment's always slow, as you can tell. I think the number was 11, right, Brianna, when we went through the slide. So we're hoping, which is very ambitious, you know, it's 160 from Victoria County. We know that's ambitious, but that's why I guess we need help, just reaching out to people who might be interested to be able to participate. You know, we realize that there's only going to be a certain number of people who say, I want to take an hour out of my day to do this. But I know there are people out there who just want to have a say. I did one of the assessments the other day, and the woman said, well, and it wasn't in Victoria County, it was in Cape Breton Regional Municipality. But she was saying, I just did this because I want them to say there's no handy transit in Sydney Forks. And so at least we can gather that information and keep bringing it back to, I know that to Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care, to Nova Scotia Health, and keep saying that when we have our meetings with them, because we do have regular meetings because there are funders, and we'll say the top concern is we need decent internet. And that's ridiculous that we should keep saying that, but I think we just keep saying it, right? We just keep saying these things and then hope that things will just change.
Great, thank you.
So thank you very much. And just before we leave, I just had a quick comment. If we're not getting the response that you'd like to have or would like to have, any suggestions on how we can better promote this particular, I guess the only comment I'd make, an hour is a long time for an interview. I think people will look at the hour before they look at the interview and the content and so I guess I have a little concern about that, but any ideas of how we or what other municipalities may have done to help promote this?
Well, I think we've had many conversations about that, but I think, you know, the thing is that people may volunteer to help out their communities. So maybe they may not do it for themselves, but they may do it to promote information in their communities. And an hour may seem like a long time, but we could make it shorter. But I think people just want to talk an hour. I mean, I could do an interview in 30 minutes, but usually people don't want to stop talking. And so that's true. That maybe, so it can be done a lot shorter, but it's more about people have a lot to say and they keep talking rather than I keep talking.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. And I also, you know, just the demographic speaks for itself, you know, so I think it's a valuable interview to have. Any other final questions or comments before Cassandra? Go ahead, please.
I think I just reiterate that we are sort of the main issue is recruitment. At this point, we've completed a small portion of what we hope to complete. And I've already been to all the senior groups that I know of and done presentations and handed out posters and put requests to council. So I hate to say that we've already tapped the low hanging fruit, but I think we have. So there's more effort needed in recruitment. We haven't, as our own coordinated group here in Victoria County. We haven't identified a need for more assessors because there's been so few assessments to complete. It's something we've been able to handle ourselves. But perhaps a strategy is to train assessors and those assessors then recruit more people. That's something that could be explored, but it is a recruitment issue. And so I hope if counselors are able to assist in that way, that we'll be able to get some more people out.
So perhaps I would just ask that maybe if you just refresh that message to us after council in the next couple of days about trying to get more assessors. Yeah, great, perfect. Thank you. And I do appreciate the cat coming up on the screen. Councillor Organ and I are very familiar with having company during virtual. So with that, I want to thank you very much for providing the information. This afternoon, we have another presenter in the queue that we have to move on to. And we look forward to seeing and speaking again as we move forward with this process. And hopefully we'll get our numbers up, our interviews up, and get the information that really is beneficial to all of us in this municipality. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us, and thank you for your continued engagement. We really appreciate you taking the time for
Very
us.
good. Thank you. Oh, it's okay. Thank you very much. I wasn't sure you were with the previous group or a new group, so welcome. A second item on council this afternoon from the Property Valuation Services. We have a presentation from Paul Beasley and Adam Hanna. And welcome to Victoria County Council. And I'll let you introduce yourselves, and I suspect you have a presentation that you're going to go through, and I'll leave it up to you whether or not you want to take questions during, or you'd rather have them held till later.
All right, thanks. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks. Thanks for having us. First of all, my name is Adam Hanna. I'm an assistant director here with Property Valuation Services. I'm from Cape Breton. I live in Sydney. I've been with the organization as an assessor for 12 and a half years, and most recently as an assistant director for about a year and a half now. I have Paul Beasley's with me as well, who's our municipal account manager. And I believe, Paul, you've been here, what, 8 years now?
I've been here for 7 going on 8. Can you hear me okay there as well?
Can everyone hear Paul?
Hello?
We can.
Okay, yep.
All right. I just wanted to say too, I've also been around the elected municipal circuit for a while too, and I'll have Councillor Patterson attest to that. I think we both go back to about 2000 or so, when we first started as municipal elected officials. So a few familiar faces there. Glad to see you.
And I believe we have Steve Hadley as well. Steve, are you on the call? Oh, he must have dropped off. That's all right. Oh, here he comes there. He's appearing as Adam Hanna. You there, Steve? All right, we'll keep going. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, there we go. So we have about 17 slides here. I'll go through the first probably 3/4, and Paul will take you through the numbers as well. Oh, there's Steve there, and we also have Steve Halley. So Steve's been with us for 25 years. He's from Cape Breton as well, and he's been the main assessor in Victoria County over the past 12 years. So that's Steve there. All right, so we'll get going here on the 2023 assessment roll for Victoria County from PVSC. So we'll talk about property assessment in general in Nova Scotia, the 2023 assessment roll that was sent out January 9th this year. The capped assessment program and the inquiry and appeal period that we just went through, and we're currently going through the appeal period now. So just quickly about PVSC. So we were created under the Property Valuation Services Corporation Act and responsible for assessing all property in Nova Scotia as per the Nova Scotia Assessment Act. We're a municipally funded organization governed by a board of directors. We currently have 10 on our board right now, and it's currently chaired by Joe Feeney, who's a counselor in Mahone Bay. We have approximately 130 employees working remotely across 62 communities around Nova Scotia. So what we do at PBSC and what we don't do. So we do deliver an assessment roll to all 49 Nova Scotia municipalities by December 31st each year. We deliver, this year was almost 640,000 assessment notices to property owners each January, usually the first or second week of January. And we also administer the CAP assessment program that Paul will talk about in more detail in a little bit, and seasonal tourist business designation program on behalf of the Nova Scotia government. So what we do not do is, or have the authority to do, is set tax rates, collect taxes, create tax policy, or provide tax relief. We do get a lot of questions on rates, as I'm sure talking with most municipalities across the province, also get questions on values, and if it's relating to tax rates or collecting taxes, we send those inquiries to the municipality, and if it's relating to value and how that's determined and or classification, we ask that they get sent to us, because that's what we handle under the Act. So classifications of property and different types of property we assess under the Act. There's 3 classifications of property. One would be residential. So most commonly, as everyone is probably familiar with, single family dwellings, as appears in the first picture there, property used for residential purposes. The second would be resource property. So large bulk acreages, in the second picture there, farmland as well, would go under the resource classification. And then the third classification would be, if it's not residential and resource, it'd be commercial. So most commonly businesses, malls, large apartment buildings. So those are the 3 types of classifications that are assessed under the Nova Scotia Assessment Act. So we assess according to the Act, and under the Act, Section 42 requires that we assess at properties at market value. So the first statement there, the amount which in the opinion of the assessor would be paid if it were sold on a date prescribed by the director in the open market by a willing seller and willing buyer. So that's a blurb from Section 42 of the Assessment Act. So this year, for example, the 2023 assessments were sent out in January 9th. And what that represents is market activity from the calendar year of 2021. It's called the base date, which we'll see in the next slide. So the base date's 1 year prior. So the base date for the 2023 assessment roll was January 1st, 2022, which consists of all the market activity in the 2021 calendar year. And then the other date is called the state date. So that's the assessment shown on the roll shall be the assessment that reflects the state of the property as it existed on the first day of December, immediately preceding the filing of roll. So what that means is the assessments that were sent out for 2023, it reflects market activity from the calendar year 2021, but at the physical state of the property as of December 1st, 2022. So it should reflect the current physical state of the property, but in a market with the conditions of as per the base date. Those 2 dates can get kind of confusing, especially when you're not used to it. So this slide just shows it a little more detail, a little more clearly. So the base date of the Act as per Section 42, it's a value on January 1st, 2022, based on sales, as I mentioned, that took place over the 2021 calendar year. And then as per Section 52, the state date, it's the physical state, the characteristics of the physical state of the property as of December 1st, 2021. So all of that, because throughout the year, we're collecting doing sales reviews, collecting information, building permit reviews, things like that, that all factors into the state of the property up until December 1st for that year for the next assessment roll. So all those factor into the delivery notices, the assessment roll for January 9th, they were sent out this year. And then we have an appeal period as per Section 2 of the Act. There's a 31-day appeal period. So when the notices get sent out, we have all the assessors throughout the province on the phones ready to answer any questions property owners may have. And then they also have 31 days to send in that appeal if they disagree with the value. So influences of market value. This is pretty self-explanatory. These are the six most the most influences of market value on property. So it's factored in the classification, location of the property, the land features of the property, bulk acreage, waterfront, building size and style, quality of construction, and the effective age or the condition of the property. If it's an older home, for example, that was renovated, it would have a higher effective age because that's directly related to depreciation. So those are the major influences of market value when it comes to valuing a property. So we also have three approaches to determine the value, and it depends on what type of property that's being valued. So we use one of three internationally accepted valuation methods. So depending on the property type and how frequently similar properties transact on the open market. So the first one, the most common one, especially with residential properties, would be a direct sales comparison approach. So analyzing recent sales of comparable properties to determine a value and then adjusting for local market conditions. So using comparables in the market to if there's a sufficient amount of sales to just to determine a property's value, then adjusting for differences in that between those properties and adjusting for local market conditions. So that's the direct sales comparison approach. The second would be the income approach to value. So determine the income of a property can earn after expenses and converting net operating income into market value. So the income approach would be used on properties that transact because of their income producing capabilities, such as large apartment buildings. And the third approach to value would be the cost approach to value. So calculating the land value and current cost to replace buildings, then deducting for depreciation. So cost values cost approach is most commonly used on unique commercial buildings that or possibly unique residential buildings as well, if they're unique and kind of out of the box and there's not really directly comparable related to that property. The cost approach can also be effective value to use. So those are the three approaches to determine value that we use. If we're looking back, I mentioned the 2023 assessments based on market activity from the 2021 calendar year. So if we're looking back to that 2021 year, everyone's probably familiar with what went on in the market during the second half of 2020 and all of 2021. And these were just a few headlines that were in the media. So soaring material costs aren't slowing builders, home prices and sales remain high, and this is the busiest year for housing market with prices up 18%. So this was actually really interesting. So what this represents is our data science team did a prediction every year of what they anticipated the market based on their data. They anticipated what the market would be doing for the coming year. So if you see from 2014 to 2000, just before 2020, that orange line would have been was their prediction each year, with the black line being what the market actually did. So all through 2014, 2016, 2018, it followed a similar pattern. And then in 2021, you see with the two orange goalposts is the base year for the 2023 assessment, represents the 2021 calendar year. You can see what the market actually did. So the prediction kind of followed exactly suit in what was going on. And then 2021, it actually skyrocketed, because I don't think anyone really could have predicted what happened through the second half of 2020 and into 2021. So that's kind of a view of what actually happened during that 2021 calendar year. And I'm just going to hand it over to Paul. He'll take you through some specific numbers for the Victoria County roll.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, and your CAO and CFO may have already gone through some of these numbers with you as you get into your budget preparations, but I'll go through them a little bit and give you a little bit of trending. As Adam mentioned, there was quite an upward swing in actual market values through that 2021 period. Actually, for the past 3 years, has been pretty interesting since the pandemic first touched our shores, so to speak. But if you look at the overall assessment for Victoria, it was $1.2 billion. But we'll break that down into residential and commercial. On the residential side, the total market assessment on the residential side, which includes everything on the residential side, was 981 million. Now you have to keep in mind that it's impacted by the cap and the cap legislation. So the cap, the CPI, which basically puts the brakes on the market increase, the CPI that was invoked this year as the brake was 7.7%. So it brought down the value a little bit. So the market was 981 million. And when you take into consideration the cap impact, was 868 million, which you might refer to as a cap impact or the cap effect or something along that lines. On the commercial, well, actually, on the residential side, that residential, or as I know you speak of residential lift or tax lift, the residential lift for total market assessment was about 11.1%. When you take, that's based on this year versus last year, it was 11.1% last year. That's a full year of the pandemic. The year before that, when it was about a half a year of the pandemic, it was at 4.8%. So you've seen that go up, similar to that line that Adam showed you in the previous slide. With the cap impacted in there, it went up about 10.4% this year. So that cap does cool it off a little bit. On the commercial side, that $246 million figure represents a 9.4% lift this year on the commercial side. Previous year was 3.8%. And the year before that was pretty much just flat, a 0.1% increase. So you can see on the commercial side, it was a little less impacted by the cap or by the pandemic. But on the residential side, you can certainly see that upward movement similar to the lines for the pandemic. Activities that we conduct during the year, we had 155 building permits in Victoria that we reviewed, 389 property transactions or sales, to put it as simply as possible. That those are the sales that we look at to determine how much assessments are going to move. Adam had talked about reviewing sales and through that 2021 calendar year, that type of thing. 389 were in Victoria this year, and we looked at them all and used them in our analysis. Appeals, there were 83 appeals last year. As you might expect, and as we expected, appeals are up this year, up approximately 50 to 60%. A lot of that is due to that 7.7% cap increase. To be quite honest, that's as big or as large an increase in people's properties that were capped since the cap program began that I'm aware of. Initially, when the cap program was brought in, it was a 10% maximum that it could be actually increased in any particular year. But with CPI, this is certainly by far the largest that I've seen, and I think it's the largest that Adam has seen as well. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So some of the sector highlights, I'll go through this quickly, but you'll see on the left sort of a multi-unit residential building. Through COVID, they were, the values were fairly flat to start, but really with supply and demand and affordable housing issues and vacants, people trying to find places to rent, and that apartments have come through okay. They certainly have been on the upswing the last few years with people needing places to live. So they were up actually last year in value. I think, Adam, I think you had mentioned about 14% at one time. They were up year over year. So they're doing okay through the pandemic now. They've come out okay. Larger industrial type properties like you'd see in Burnside and some of the larger types of manufacturing facilities, around the province, they've certainly come through the pandemic fairly well too. There's a high demand for leasable space for manufacturing or for businesses. Office space has been pretty flat because, as you know, there's been quite a movement to work from home. But I guess the ones that are still suffering a bit more than any are the hotels and motels, in that people are just starting to get back. The accommodation industry, tourism was certainly hurt by the pandemic, and they're just starting to, sort of get back out there now. So during that 2021 year, or for this assessment role, Hotels, motels stayed pretty flat. So moving to the capped assessment program, probably what we get the most questions on, other than, why did my assessment go up? The other next question is about the cap program. Typically, it's provincial legislation. It puts a cap on the amount which a property can increase in any particular year. That cap is based on the Nova Scotia Consumer Price Index that is set by Stats Canada every year. It's based on the October 30th year-to-year change in the Consumer Price Index for Nova Scotia. Stats Canada advises the province as to what that number is. The province tells us what number is going to be used for the cap or the cap increase in any particular year. So they provide that to us in November. This year it was 7.7%, as I had mentioned. Previous years, last year or the year before, it was 5.4%. And then probably the 4 years prior to that, it only averaged about 1.5%. So we all know that CPI, the cost of goods and services, were going up through the pandemic, and it's still affected by supply chain issues and various types of issues such as gas prices and those types of things. Eligibility for the cap, there's various eligibility criteria for someone to be eligible or for a property to be eligible. The primary one is that you have to be a resident of the province of Nova Scotia for at least half of the year, 183 days plus sort of thing. Also, you have a Nova Scotia resident has to be owner of at least half of the property in question. Commercial businesses or commercial properties or corporate, incorporated companies and that are not eligible for the cap. Any property that sells in any particular assessment roll year is not eligible for the cap unless it is a family sale. And family sale, the cap can stay in place if it's a direct family member. However, if it sells and it's a third party arm's length transaction, then the cap, it's not eligible for the cap for that assessment roll year. And then it may become eligible for the cap the following year. Some resource properties are eligible for the cap, but exempt forestry and exempt farmland is not. And Adam, was there anything I forgot there? I think I got most of them anyways. Oh, multi-unit dwellings, 4 or more are not eligible for the cap if there's 4 or more apartments in it, that type of thing. There's a couple other ones, but those are the main ones, I think. And yeah. So when you will have seen this in your own mailbox, I'm sure, something similar to this. This is a copy of the notice that we send out. So this is just to illustrate what the assessment versus the capped assessment might look like on a notice. So the way the cap works is the higher of the two, either the assessed value, or I should say the lower of the two, either the assessed value or the capped assessment is what you pay taxes on. So in this case, the market value assessment was 416,000 versus the capped assessment was at 372,000. So what is, what taxes are based on is the lower of the two, which would be the capped amount in this case. Now the footprint on, or the footnote on the bottom of this slide says that if your property's assessed value is less than the capped assessment field appears blank. So if it happened to be that the market assessment was actually lower than the capped assessment, then that column that says capped assessment would appear blank. And the lower of the two, which would be the market value assessment in that case, would be the one that would be in the far right-hand column saying the taxable assessed value. We get a lot of questions on that. Why did I lose my cap? Well, you may not have lost your cap. It may just be that your market value was lower than your cap. So the cap's not showing.
Just one other about the cap eligibility requirements. One other one is new constructions also not eligible for the cap. So So for example, if I'm a residential homeowner that currently has cap savings on my account and I build say a garage or an addition, it's not that I lose my cap, but the value amount of that new construction gets added onto my cap because new construction is not eligible. So if I build say, for example, the garage I built was $20,000, then that $20,000 gets added into my cap because the new construction is not eligible for it.
All right, a little bit on the appeal process. As Adam said, our notices went out in January. They go out in January every year. So if a property owner disagrees with their assessment for whatever reason, they have the right under the act to appeal. They have 31 days from the date that that notice goes out. This year it was January 9th. So they had from January 9th till February the 9th, 31 days at midnight. That on February 9th, their ability to appeal stops essentially. So it's that type of time frame every year, January to February. And there's 3 levels of appeal. So the initial level is sort of the PVSC assessor review. So if someone decides to appeal their assessment, they'll send the notice back to us within 30 days. And once that 30 days is up, our assessors will start going through those appeals and they will start contacting property owners, and they'll talk to the property owners about their assessment, their grounds for appeal. They'll talk them through it. And that's what our assessors are doing right now. They are full blown 5 days a week working on assessment appeals right now. They're talking to property owners and they'll make a decision. And there's 3 things that can happen. The assessor can confirm the assessed value, which is basically saying we don't believe that there should be any changes to this. The assessor can make an adjustment or amend the assessment. Could be for any reason such as maybe the data is incorrect or whatever. Maybe there's a garage, maybe there isn't a garage, that type of thing. Or the appellant or the property owner can withdraw their appeal after discussing with the assessor if they wish. However, we'll send them a notice, whether it's confirmation or amendment, we'll send them a notice. And if they still disagree, they have the option to go to the second level of appeal, which is to the Nova Scotia Assessment Appeal Tribunal. That sounds kind of daunting, but really it's just an appeal tribunal chairperson plus the property owner plus a representative from PVSC, and everybody says, or the property owner will say their bit as to why they feel it's incorrect, and we'll say why we feel it's correct or should be adjusted to this or whatever. And then the chairperson will make a decision. It's relatively informal. Most of them now are done online or virtually. So that's the second level. And then if they still disagree with the decision of the chairperson, then they have 14 days that they can notify that they are going to continue it to the utility and review board. That's a very formal type of appeal process. I think most of you are aware of the utility and review board and sort of the I guess the formality of it all and the types of hearings they have and so on and so forth. All right, Adam, we'll go to the last one. Our last slide is just our contact information. We have a new website as well, but there's our 800 number. If anybody has asked you a question at the grocery store or on the street and you're not quite sure what the answer is, definitely refer them to us. We get calls all the time. And you as a counselor or you as a municipality, if you have questions, definitely for sure, send us a note and we'll get back to you as soon as we can on it. And we'll open it up for questions here if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm just kind of waiting for your screen to come back. So there.
I know that's a lot of information very quickly.
Yeah, no, it's a good review for a lot of us, that's for sure. Especially this time of year, we're getting lots of questions and comments, particularly where our assessments aren't going up or I'm sorry, aren't going down. So there's been a lot of conversation in the community. So I'm just checking around with council. Anybody have any questions? We'll start with the deputy warden, and please introduce yourself so that the folks know who it is.
Thank you, Warden. Larry Doffney, Counselor, District 6, English Beach area in Cape Breton. Just a couple of questions. I'm thinking more of who determines the values in grants in lieu of taxes. Is it the PBSC that would do that, and I'm just wondering how that is handled?
Adam, I'll let Adam answer that. He's in on the valuation side every day, 7 days a week, basically. So Adam, I'll let you field that, and I'll jump in if I feel I need to.
No problem. So the way that we determine the values each year, we do yearly reassessments in every neighborhood across the province. So I mentioned we review every sale that comes in, that every sales transaction that comes through. So before the reassessment happens, all sales are reviewed to make sure data is correct. And then we'll go through each municipality, to see what the sales are telling us and what the market's doing for that particular year. So the reassessment's quite detailed. I've been involved with it for about 12 years. I know Steve on the call has as well, and we both were involved with it in Victoria County over the last number of years. So we go through and based on the market activity and the sales during that reassessment in each particular neighborhood, the adjustments are made for the yearly reassessment. When Paul gave the earlier number of 11.1% increase, that's not just a market increase from a reassessment, that's a year-over-year increase. So that would include all building permits, new builds, anything that was added to the roll, the year-over-year increase, not just market activity. So, but that's kind of a brief overview of how we do our yearly reassessments in each neighborhood across Nova Scotia.
I think just to add for grant and lieu, we do the assessment on it. We set the values. However, I think the second part, or part B of grant and lieu, and I'm not an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination, but I think your CAO and CFO are certainly more, could speak to this better than myself in total. But I believe that for uniform assessment purposes, a lot of those accounts are identified to the province. And I think that's how the province determines or which ones are included in the grant and lieu's type section, or the grants, sort of the payments in lieu, that type of things. So I'll just leave it at that, but there is that component that determines how much the grant and lieu payments are as well, based on the assessed value that we give.
Okay, no, that's good. And I'm more concerned, I guess, with Parks Canada, Cape Breton Highlands National Park. It's a vast majority of our lands. And I know years ago, the Citadel Hill was reassessed. And it came in quite high compared to what they were paying before. I'm just wondering, is that initiated by the municipality, or is that initiated by PBSC?
So reassessments in general, you mean?
No, just
That particular-
reassessments. Grants in lieu. I'm just thinking grants in lieu, for example, for Alexander Graham Bell, Cape Breton Highlands National Park, and also provincial lands. If we're not happy with the assessment or whatever that the province or the feds have put on the land, and we think it should be higher, who would initiate that? Should it be the municipality, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. We get inquiries from the municipalities, different municipalities quite often, saying, reviewing their assessment role, looking at specific accounts to inquire about or have us reassess for the next assessment that's coming out. So if you have any issues by that, then by all means, the municipality can reach out. You'll either be contacted by Paul or myself, and we can do a reassessment on that. If you have an issue with the value, take another look at it for sure.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's fair to say under the act that just about anybody can initiate a reassessment. It's just there's a process as to how you do it under the act. But I think any property owner, so it could be the government could initiate it, you as municipality could initiate it, we could initiate it as PVSC, an independent outside person could initiate it, those types of things. But typically it'd probably be either you or the province, I would think.
Okay, no, thank you. I guess I'm getting back to also protected areas. A large number of our properties are now becoming protected areas in the province and have no economic well, they have economic value as far as tourism, I guess, but as far as development, they're no longer available. So I guess my question is, I guess would have to go to the municipality to them, is that I feel they should be taxed.
I've lost the mic on that last part. I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, the mic cut out there.
I think I'm dying here. Yeah, my battery's dying on the thing. Just one second.
Oh, okay.
I know in the case of conservation properties, we still assess them the same as we would any other property. But the province, it can be applied to, you can apply to the province to have the conservation property placed in the trust or the conservation trust or whatever, and the province decide whether it's exempt or not, whether it's going to go on that list. There may be other properties that you're thinking of in regards to your question, but those ones that are exempt, typically it's the province that decides what's going to be on their list of protected conservation properties.
Okay, thank you. My question that I cut out on there was Airbnbs. Are they assessed as commercial or residential?
They are residential.
Okay.
It depends on how many units in the Airbnbs. So if it's greater than 4 units, it would be, Airbnbs would be considered short stay under the short stay legislation and would be identified as more than 4 units for rent on a short stay accommodation type basis. Then they are reviewed and would be taxable or deemed to be commercial. It's kind of tricky at times as to how many bedrooms are being offered for rent in these facilities, in these short stay type of accommodations. We're hopeful that the new registry will help us identify which ones are actually 4 units versus 3 units. And, which ones are actually Airbnbs or not Airbnbs, that type of thing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor McNeil.
Thank you, Warden. Paul McNeil, District 1. I own an area right to the Red Barn before Bedeck. Just, you mentioned like if there was an upgrade to a property, the cap would come off. Like would it be assessed at the true assessed value of the whole property, or would it be upgraded just with that portion of the property that was upgraded?
Sorry about that. I might have misspoke. The cap, what I meant, if I misspoke, what the cap doesn't come off. So it's only the new construction that gets added in, because new construction's not capped under the cap legislation. The value of that new construction will get added into the existing cap. So the cap doesn't come off. It's just the value of the new construction would be added onto the cap.
Like for instance, if you had a $300,000 residential property and it was capped, let's just say it was capped at 300,000, and you added a $50,000 garage to the property, then that 50 would be added to the 300,000. So your cap, technically it would still have your cap. 50,000 in improvements would be added to it. And the next year that cap, if you're still eligible, would be reset based on that 350.
Yeah, so it wouldn't go up to the true assessed value of the property.
No, if it was true assessed at 500 and you were sitting at 300, added a $50,000 garage, you still get that. There's still a cap benefit there, potentially, depending if it's still eligible or not.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McDonald, any questions? Are you good or?
Yes, thank you, Warden. Norman McDonald up in District 8 in Northern Cape Breton. Just some of your statistics there. You said there was 389 sales within Victoria County. So is the assessment value based per area within the municipality? Meaning, is it the total sales that determine the percentage that's placed on the cap value?
On the cap value. So the market activity is not reflect the assessed value is totally independent from the cap value. So I'll say the cap values is the value, is the percent increase that's set by Stats Canada. So that has nothing to do with the market itself or sales we review. The assessed value is from those sales. So we go through each neighborhood. For example, all those sales happened in all of Victoria County, but we'll break that down when we do our reassessment by neighborhood. Go through each neighborhood to review specific sales, because as you're probably well aware, different neighborhoods may be more valuable than other neighborhoods, right? So when we kind of, as I kind of mentioned before, the reassessment process is a bit of a large process and takes some time, because we're literally breaking down and going through neighborhoods to see the different sales in those specific neighborhoods. That total sale figure was the total sales in Victoria County during the 2021 calendar year used in the reassessment throughout all the neighborhoods. But the cap is independent of that, would have been independent of that increase, because the cap's provincial legislation that goes up by the CPI each year. It's not related to the market activity.
Right, so just as an example, would sales in English, would they affect houses in Cape North? Because they're two totally separate neighborhoods that are like 45 minutes apart.
We typically like to when we're setting specific increases in different neighborhoods or different overall areas, if it's not a comparable neighborhood, then it wouldn't have an effect on basically, like if it's not a comparable neighborhood, then it's not going to get the same increase as a superior neighborhood, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So the assessor that does a reassessment for, say, Victoria County, and for many years it was Steve, who's actually on this call, knows the area very well. They also review all the sales. So when they're reviewing them and going through those specific neighborhoods, depending on the type of neighborhood they're already familiar with, so they're not going to automatically apply a same increase to those two neighborhoods as you mentioned, if they're not comparable neighborhoods. I think it's kind of getting to the root maybe of what you're asking.
It is. And just lastly, you said 155 building permits were issued within Victoria County. I was just wondering, is the assessment based on the total sale of the permit? Say if a building permit was issued for 350,000, is that market assessment on the building permit itself? Or does an assessor go out to the actual property and do a?
No, yeah, that's a great question. So no, it's not determined by the building permit value, because we get a lot of those inquiries from property owners as well, thinking in different areas across the province, panicking because they think their building value is too high or too low on the permit, and think that's all we're looking at. But we actually have assessors that go out and inspect those building permits. And I know, Steve, I don't know if you want to chime in here. You did, I think, probably all those inspections in Victoria County in the 2022 calendar year. But we actually go out and review it because we assess that, we have to assess that market value according to the act. We actually, especially on the big new construction building permits, we have to physically see the new construction, what's happening, because sometimes in the time between the building permits issued and new work, the scope of work actually changed. So we actually have to see what's in that, which happens quite often. We have to see what's going on, and then also revalue the property the assessment based on the new construction added. And oftentimes when we're adding that final value to the roll, we have to see it in person, because we have the mindset of, okay, we're going to add this. We have to be confident in what we're adding to the roll, because if the property owner appeals it, is it defendable? So often, especially with large building permits, we'll take that away. We'll reevaluate the property using the direct sales comparison approach to see if that final value is actually dependable after we reviewed it in the field.
Great, thank you.
And just to go back a little bit to sort of the previous discussion, we get the question quite often across the province as to whether property values in certain parts of the province are affected by HRM property values. So it's kind of similar to the question that you had asked before about do values in this area affect values in that area. Generally speaking, the answer is no. And one of the reasons why is we use mass appraisal practices, which basically we need to have enough sales that we can qualify as arm's length, open market, independent transactions, whereby we have enough that we can actually determine that the market is, like, the needle is being moved in a certain direction. So typically, if we have one or two sales in an area, which happens quite often in some of the rural areas around the province, there's not enough evidence there to really move the market. But if we know all the neighborhoods all around it are moving and there's enough data there, then generally speaking, the tide is sort of affects all of it, and there will be some movement. But some areas you see very little of a market move each year, and especially the last couple of years. Some areas had quite significant market increases. So some particular neighborhoods maybe 20%, some particular neighborhoods maybe 5%.
And I can speak to it. Yeah, definitely in Ingonish, in that area, you have a lot more sales and things in Ingonish compared to down north, we'll say, kind of thing, right? So we will look at the neighboring, neighborhoods around that stuff down north, because there's a limited number of sales, right, and things there. So we, in most cases, like Paul said, we if there's a number of sales and we have an abundance of sales and things, it's a lot easier to make the call. But we will move to neighboring neighborhoods and things like that just to kind of see how they're impacted and things do there. So, yeah.
Good. Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Anybody on this side of the table, Councillor Longva or Councillor Organ? Councillor Longva, please.
I'm kind of coming to this conclusion anyway. So if people are, like, lots of people are buying land these days, prices have skyrocketed in my area. And there's a lot of summer houses going up, like very expensive summer houses going up, and then there's people moving in full time that are building expensive houses. So that's going to make my taxes go up. Is really the bottom line, is like what you're saying.
If there's adequate sales, if the costing data is there as well. For instance, you all know the price of lumber went up considerably over the past couple of years, those types of things. Where it moves in the upcoming years, hard to say. Maybe there'll be a little softening, but if the market data is there, we follow the data. We have to, under the Act, we have to follow the market evidence and assess at market value.
And you also mentioned that that farms would be under resource. Like, I have resource property, it's full of trees, like nothing happens there. So I figured it's just called resource, but that was confusing to me, that you would call, like, if you had a big dairy farm with a whole bunch of cattle and they're making milk, so that wouldn't be considered commercial. It would be resource.
I don't know if Adam wants to jump in, but if distinguishing between farm and forestry type land, there's different classifications. Typically, farmland that is used for bona fide farming activities is exempt in the province, as is bona fide forestry activities. Now, that's the key word, bona fide. So if it's not bona fide forestry activities, it's not exempt under the Act. So bona fide being the act of foresting, using silviculture methods, maintaining, investing, growing a crop, just like farming, forestry is growing a crop, and that's the intent of it. A lot of people out there are watching the trees grow and they enjoy having habitat and wildlife, but that's not bona fide foresting. So, we do get into that back and forth. Some of it's exempt, some's not. It's all considered resource property. Some's exempt, some is taxable.
Thank you.
Adam, you want to add anything to that, or Steve?
No, just kind of building off that, like, resource is a big umbrella. There's, like Paul mentioned, there's exempt and taxable. So just because it's on his resource doesn't mean it's exempt. So, for example, we get a lot of inquiries from owners saying they want their land classified as forestry because there's a bunch of trees on it, and so they want it exempt. But under the Act, forestry, to have an exempt property, is a forest management plan has to be in place. Cutting, blazing trails, selling commercially, things like that. So there's resource is a big umbrella, but just because it's a resource doesn't mean it's necessarily exempt from taxes. It just depends on what type of resources activities are happening on that property.
Is that it, Councillor? Thank you.
Yeah, and the key to that too, part Adam, is actively doing this stuff, right? It's, you know, actively farming, actively foresting. Is the key to it all.
Thank you, Counselor. We're good. Barb, we're good. Thanks.
I'm good. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Counselor
Thanks.
Oregon, any questions or comments? Good, thank you. Counselor Patterson.
Yeah, thank you. Just one quick thing. Good afternoon, Adam and Steve, and former Mayor Beasley. Good to see you, Paul.
Good to see
I was-
you, Counselor.
Thank you. I was going to get into the resource situation too, but I think Councilor Longman handled that. My question is, are you still doing aerial assessing, I guess, the flyovers?
Well, it's one of the tools that we use, kind of, for example, what we mentioned, we do try and inspect every building permit that we get. Aerial comes in handy sometimes. I'll mention, as I'm sure everyone's aware, we're down here once Fiona hit in September 24th, I believe it was. Sydney here was heavily impacted. Areas in Victoria County was pretty heavily impacted as well. So aerial came in handy. What we did was we sent an emergency flyover 2 weeks after Fiona to try to capture as much data and in property damage as we could, as well as having, I think both myself and Steve were in Victoria County with our boots on the ground as well, trying to take a look at the damage and before the roll closed, because our December 1st deadline didn't leave us much time for that. So we still use the pictometry imagery flyovers as a tool when needed, but it doesn't replace, for example, and it does come in handy, especially for those situations that no one could foresee coming. But so we do use it as a tool, but it's not the only way that we gather the information.
That I forgot to identify myself. Fraser Patterson, District 5, which is Bulliedry, across Kelly's Mountain, the Bulliedry part of Victoria County. So.
Thank you, Counselor. And just as we wrap up here, if I could, just one quick question for you. My district, Bruce Morrison, is the village of Bedeck and just the immediate surrounding area. It's not related to that. Was at a meeting last week about the erosion along the rivers, and particularly Middle River, Marguerite, North River. Are people starting to appeal the damage that's being done by coastal erosion and or climate change? Is that a reasonable grounds to appeal your assessment?
I'm sorry, you cut out on me about 3/4 of the way through. What was the reason for appealing?
Because of loss of property through rivers rerouting and loss of agricultural land. Is that a reason, or is that a reasonable reason to appeal your property assessment?
Because of the act and because of assessed at market value, if an owner feels that the damage caused by the property erosion, loss of land directly impacts the value, and if they're looking at their assessment notice at the value and they're saying, because of this damage, I don't think my property is worth this, then it would be a reason for an appeal. I guess it would depend on the extent of the erosion. We do get some appeals due to erosion each year in certain areas. I guess it would depend on, I guess, the extent and their assessed value. If they I mean, any owner, if they feel like their value is not worth it based on any kind of damage, then it would be grounds for us to take a review.
Yeah, we saw some substantial damage to a lot of coastal properties, which, you know, I would probably argue in some cases rendered them valueless. So anyway, I think it's just, I don't know if people understand that would be a reasonable reason to appeal their assessment. So it's just good to know.
Also, in case it ever came up again, owners don't have to wait until the following year to have their value reviewed for the appeal period. So for example, if you, for example, thought of that, say this summer, you don't have to wait for the appeal period, for example, to have that reviewed for 2024. We have a lot of property owners or municipalities that call in and have us review values in properties while we're doing building permits, for example. So that can be reviewed prior to the roll close, and so it might actually save them having to go through the appeal process beforehand.
I think the other thing too, in a case such as Fiona, It's a particularly good example of why aerial pictometry can be used as a great tool. We don't fly all areas every year. We'll fly over sort of the corridor areas every couple of years, but we can pick up on things such as any major coastal erosion in a lot of these areas that are kind of in the corridor areas. But Fiona hit such a big swath of area that the emergency flyovers were important to try to pick up if there were erosion issues or damage and that type of thing. So if there are residents that return to their cottage this summer or this spring, and they find that, the front deck is pretty much hanging over the cliff or the bluff now along the shore because of major damage over the winter, that's something that they should contact us about for sure. They don't need to wait to the appeal period, as Adam had said.
In Victoria County, it hasn't been a common thing over the last number of years. An odd time, we will get an appeal on like erosion and things like that. But it's definitely not common. It's just a handful a year, possibly at the most, when we get an inquiry or maybe an appeal on kind of thing.
All right, well, thank you very much. We've gone a bit over time, but that has to do with the interest in the topic. I'd like to thank you very much for providing the information today and answering our questions and addressing some of the concerns that were brought forward by councilors. So thank you very much, and we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda. Nice seeing you, and
Thank
thanks
you
again.
all. Thank you, your worship. A pleasure to be in front of you here today.
Thanks for having us. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. You want right now? We're going to take a 10-minute recess. So that one session went a little bit longer, so we'll reconvene at 10 to 4. Right, to reconvene the council. So the next item on the agenda is the minutes for March 6, 2023. Those minutes were circulated to you. Were there any errors or omissions in those minutes? Any corrections? Hearing none, we'll have a motion to accept the minutes of March 6th.
Accept the minutes?
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Longa. It's seconded by Councillor Organ. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, the motion is carried. The minutes have been approved. We're going to move on to the CAO's report, please, Leanne.
Yes, thank you. So just a few things to note. Circulated to you was a marketing levy bylaw or proposed marketing levy bylaw from Terry Smith, who was here and in December, I believe, where we talked about an increase to the marketing levy. And we had asked for a standardized bylaw across the island. He sent that to me last week and I have forwarded it on to you. If all are in agreement, we will need a first reading or approval of the first reading of the marketing levy bylaw.
We approve the first reading of the marketing bylaw.
It's been moved by the deputy warden, seconded by Councillor McDonald. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried. First reading has been approved.
Great, thank you. I met with the new manager for the Village of Bedeque, Roman Braun. We congratulate him for his start in his new role. I'm actually meeting with him tomorrow morning also, just to go over some of the ways that we have worked together with the village. And I will be reporting back on anything that we're discussing, just to give him a little bit of a head start in his role there. Just to let you know, we've received approval on the White Point land for the transfer station, and it's now in the survey department. I may have said that at the last council session also, so no news on that yet. In our finance department, we're working on our second draft of our budget, and we'll be having another go around with that with councilors for setting another date for our second draft of the budget. Our next tax sale is March 28th down at the Inverary at 11 a.m. I believe that there's probably about 13 to 15 properties that are still left on the tax sale as of right now. In our Public Works Department, we did pick up a new to us transfer truck. Our Public Works staff who went up to pick it up are quite pleased with it. This is replacing an old transfer truck that had to be taken off the road. So if you see a new transfer truck calling to Guysborough, give them a wave. If we have received a bidder on our Ingonish roof for the Cape Smoke or the Smoky Wreck department down there, there is an end of April target for that to be completed. And Straight Engineering will be reaching out to contractors for our Ingonish water line extension. So we will be having public meetings down there related to that as well, the water line extension. Our communication department. So Jennifer has been meeting staff, meeting counselors and learning the role and prioritizing tasks. And we'll be coming forward with some ideas in the next little bit. Our senior safety officer has received a grant for seniors cook at the Food Hub project, which will be starting in April. She's looking for 2 seniors in each district to participate. Ideally, they have kitchen experience. Ideally, and seniors lunches have been going well. Our economic development officer has been discussing C&D options with some contractors and no more housing project updates as of right now. In Dan's department, so in tourism has gathered some quotes for portable staging and has ordered a portable stage. We have a 16 by 12 portable stage loaner program that's going to be developed and rolled out in June 2023. Looks like our home for it is probably going to be in Ingonish, but it will be available for throughout the county and have a loaner program where volunteers will know how to set it up and take it down. Dan's been attending some classes and webinars, or Dan and his team, on different topics. There's going to be a registration for a wilderness first aid course in partnership with Angelo from North River Kayak Tours. It'll be launched next week. One registrant from each district will be able to apply to have full costs covered for this program as a pilot program for future supports of this type of program that increases our capacity for this industry. And check our website and Facebook page for registration details. That should be up there next week. In our recreation department. So the first week of multi-sport pilot program went extremely well as all participants had huge smiles and lots of fun. Currently between the two first locations, there's a total of 53 registered participants, which is great. We're currently meeting with the core Active Transit Bicycle Nova Scotia group to start the process of identifying potential routes for evaluation and certification for Blue Route. Also starting to look at possible summer programming ideas for communities around the county. In our trails department, we're doing continued work and meeting with landowners and gathering permits for summer construction work to commence. And in community development, a total asset list for Victoria County. So this is expanded from accommodations and food and beverage to all types of businesses. And we're gathering data for a Destination Canada cluster mapping project. And the Ingonish STEP program and Bedeck Beacon projects are ongoing, with both having monthly update meetings this coming week. And those are the things that I have to let you know about.
Any questions or comments for the CEO in regards to the report that you presented this afternoon, Councillor Patterson?
There we go. Yeah, you didn't, it's in your report, Ian, about the mass casualty report coming out next week. Is it the 30th, 31st? I forget the date exact. Or 30th. I participated in that Zoom call too. And it's interesting because two of the FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, committees that I participated in the week before had the role of policing in Canada on the agenda. But we ran out of time in both of them. And I think what happens is they pay the translators so many hours so they're going to have a special committee meeting, I believe. And as I mentioned at the one that Mayor Chisholm ran as the NSFM president, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at what comes out of the one in Nova Scotia next week, because and I guess we tend to forget that we are responsible for policing. So, you know, it could affect us very, very directly. And it was interesting, Jeff Stewart, I think some of you know Jeff, he was the president of the NSFM. He lives very close to where it took place. And his concern was for bringing it all back, you know, bringing all the hurt and the pain back to the people that it affected. So it's going to be an interesting report to see what recommendations are there that may affect us for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for your comments. Anybody else have any questions or comments for the CAO? Councillor Longa.
When you talked about the loaner program for staging, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, so we're ordering, as the county is ordering an asset of a portable stage.
Okay.
And it'll be available for community groups to rent from us for holding events in their communities.
Okay, thank you. When you said staging, I thought, you know, the stuff the carpenters put up.
No, this is an actual stage.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, a
Okay.
16 by 12 stage for musical events. Yeah.
Mhm, great.
Theatrical events. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
You can play your ukulele.
Yes. How much is the rent?
Any other questions or comments? I just want to mention that the name change for Campbell Street to Jessica Wong Lane will take place probably in May or June. So that's just having a few hiccups around coordinating, make sure family were around, et cetera, and a couple of other minor issues. So it'll probably be in May or June, and trying to schedule it on to council days. So we'll be here to be in attendance as well. All right. Sorry,
Just
go ahead.
one other piece, like, that's a good point. Like, this stage is one more piece of the community placemaking that we're trying to get going and get in different communities. So keep checking our website and our Facebook for details on it. We're going to be looking for ideally volunteers in each community to learn how to put it together. It might be a little bit cumbersome to put together, so we want people trained on that so that we have it for a long time and lots of places
So
can use
when
it.
is it expected?
We're expecting it in the next few weeks, I think.
So
So it should be available in June.
Should they contact Chris if they want to book it for?
We're not sure yet.
Okay.
That's all going to be determined.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you very much. And just before we move on, we had a committee of the whole meeting and we had a recommendation at that meeting. So we need a motion to accept the recommendations from the committee of the whole.
I recommend we accept the recommendations from the committee of the whole meeting this morning.
Thank you. That's been moved by the deputy warden. Do we have a seconder, please?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Contrary, motion is carried. The recommendation has been approved. We're going to move on to district concerns and start with Councillor Patterson.
Nothing really, Warden, just going back to the meeting we had last week with the Public Works Deputy Minister and the areas of concern. People are pointing out more and more situations where the coastal erosion is basically what it is, and
Thank you for your comments, sir. Councillor Organ, anything from your district, please?
Just to let the residents of White Point, Smelt Brook area, we are one step closer to obtaining a street light at the intersection of White Point. The work order number has been sent in. They finally found us. And I spoke twice personally, face to face, to Mr. McDonald about the signage for the no parking signs in White Point, and he is trying to rectify this for us before this end of the school year. So that's all my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Alongva.
The only thing I have today is I'd like to pass along my deepest sympathy to the family and friends of Margie Katakos, formerly Margie McDonald. She passed away a couple of days ago, and I send them all my deepest sympathy. And that's it for District 4. Thank you.
And Margie was a valued member of our team in Public Works, and we are all feeling the same thing. So yes, good, great reminder. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Warden. No real concerns. I'm just wondering for next budget day, if we could maybe have a look at the grants in lieu of taxes from the provincial and federal governments, just to have a review to see if they're reasonable or not, I guess. We might not be able to do much for this year with it, but if it's something we're concerned about, maybe we can look at it for next year. But and that's it for District 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden Duffy. Councillor McNeil.
Thank you, Warden. 15 years, this is probably only the third time I don't have anything to report.
Well, thank you for that report, sir. Councillor McDonald, anything down in your district, sir?
Thank you, Warden. Yes, just the only thing is I just wanted to bring up when we had our meeting with the Deputy Minister of Transportation there last week with MLA Bain, just to how it was brought up that the importance of the paving projects north of Smoky through English and leaving from Effie's Brook up through District 8 there in Dingwall. I just wanted the minutes to reflect that if I could. And pretty quiet in District 8. That's about it.
Thank you very much. And my concerns, I don't have any other than the fact that I just want to report in two quick updates. One, Councillor McLeod and I both participated in municipal matters 2 weeks ago, and so that's districts 2 and 3 done. So you'll be probably contacted by CBC to to give updates in your district. So you guys are next, just so you know. I'm not sure when that'll happen, but you'll be contacted and I ask for your participation in that. The other thing I just want to mention, I met with our communications, new communications person, Jennifer, today, and we just talked about a little strategy about communications and the importance of it, particularly your role as counselors. And she's going to meet, we kind of had, came to the agreement that one of the things that would be next on her list to do was meet with you individually as counselors, just to get to know you and get a sense of what your concerns are in around communication. So I just ask you to make that a priority and also to make sure that you find the time to do that. So I think it's important for all of us. And just having that short conversation, I know that she's going to do an excellent job in that regard. So thank you for your time today as well. So I don't have anything else other than the fact I should have referenced earlier that Councillor McLeod sent in regrets today, and as we move forward, we wish her well, and we are going to now move on to the next item on the agenda. And are there any? There's a motion here for an approval for a private road. Did somebody have a motion for a private road?
So there's a lot of things that went over to improve access to warming. That's so basically, a motion from council saying that, yes, they will make the motion, will allow a private road put in, but with that, the problem for municipality is not responsible for any of certain things. So the actual motion that council approved private road, but it's not potential, or this is there things but not able to do that. Snow line for who's this from? This is from Wanda at Northridge, and Wanda said that they need this motion in order to go along with it, with the sale. The road there.
So district planning has been dealing with Catherine Ann Woodford. Catherine Ann Woodford? Kathy Ann Woodford on a piece of property she owns. District planning has sent this in and said that they need the motion on this for her development to continue, which is we're taking on no responsibility related to this. And maybe you'll pass this on, maybe you'll.
Is that they're not going to go ahead and sell this plot land and then.
So district planning has sent this to us already to get an approval, so the next steps could be taken by the landowner.
Any question? Alderwood Lane is one of the lanes that we own that New Alderwood is on, and this is just an extension beyond that. So it's an extension by the property owners at that point.
Would it have any effect on Alderwood at all, or is it totally away from Alderwood?
Yeah, it's above it and shouldn't have any impact at all, except it's an extension from beyond there so they can develop the property in behind. So we're just saying we're not having any responsibility as far as plowing, maintenance, anything. That's up to the private homeowner. Private owner, I should say.
I'll make that a
Motion
motion.
as presented.
It's been moved by Councillor McNeil, seconded by
Okay, so
Councillor Patterson. You second that? Yes, thanks. So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion's carried. Letter will be sent. So. Yep, just getting my agenda back up here. So any and all correspondence has been forwarded and sent?
Forwarded and sent.
Thank you. Any committee reports this afternoon? We are good? I'm sorry? We're good?
Approve the minutes.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we approved them. For the minutes of March 6th, we did approve those, yeah. So there's nothing else that's been added to, I think that, was there something? Yes, there was. You did, and I wrote it on my paper copy, but I didn't have it on my computer. So FCM delegates, Counselor, do you want to speak to that, or do you?
Oh, you can.
All right, so
I was just
originally
going
we-
to say if Counselor Doffley is going.
So so thank you for the vote of confidence for the Toronto Maple Leafs still playing in May. So originally we had, we always send 4 delegates to the FCM. So the 4 that were eligible to go this year were Councillor McLeod, Councillor Deputy Warden Doffney, Councillor McDonald, and Councillor McNeil. So Councillor McLeod will not be attending, Councillor McNeil will not be attending. Have you made up your, do you need some more time before you need you get Councillor McDonald, before you make your decision? That's not a problem. So by the end of next week, if you will let Stephanie know so that we can make arrangements. So that leaves us with 1, possibly 2 spots. So do we want to fill those spots, or will we just send the 2 that are scheduled to go? Is there anybody that has a keen interest in going? What we will do, those who are interested, we'll put their names in a hat, draw them out. So,
Ms. Longbow would like to go. That's fine by me. Fine by me.
all right. And we'll wait, we'll put whoever else may be interested, we will, once Councillor McDonald makes his decision, so we don't have to do it twice. So there could be potential 1 or 2. We'll put anybody who's interested, we'll put their names in the hat just to make it fair. You okay with that? And if you are interested, express your interest to either myself or to Stephanie, and we'll make sure that we do it in an independent way. So, all right, so we'll just hold on to those reservations at this point, and we'll see who's going up with the deputy warden and Councillor Patterson. You guys are for sure confirmed. All right, thank you for bringing that up, Councillor Patterson. Our next meeting is, I know, but we could end this. Our next meeting is April 3rd, and that is a committee of the whole, and that is in Indian Brook. So, all right, we need a motion to go in camera. We have 2 quick items to go in camera with. So we have a motion to go in camera, and then we'll ask people that are not on council to clear the room, please.
So move, going to.
Moved by the deputy warden, seconded by Councillor Longo. All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to go in camera. So sorry, those of you that are not. Sorry, you'll get over.